And the microphone's off.
The microphone's off. So there are two old-fashioned. I had a chance to do the picture. That's nice.
It's easier to read.
It's probably easy, huh?
It's easier to read.
I know, but it's crazy with the papers.
Yeah.
Do this now. And everybody can take some. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a picture and post it.
Okay, thank you. It's Woven Sein.
Nothing for you? There's one or two, please.
Every day.
No, it's okay.
Okay, but say that.
Jay, not like.
I'm like, there's four people on. There's four people on.
The papers cause much more of a commotion.
Yeah, you need like
It's exciting.
you need an extra half an hour.
I know it's been a while. It's easier to take a picture.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you can write before it takes 2 seconds.
Yeah? Because I realized I forgot last night. So
Yeah, until 10:25.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it.
Everybody gets it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Kevin. First, I want to thank the Parnes HaChodesh, René and Sylvia Fuksbrumer, לעילוי נשמת Eugene Roth, חיים אברהם, יעקב, and גבריאל, נשמת אריאלה, our family shall simcha, nachas, and bracha, and also the Safir family, לעילוי נשמת דבורה בas חיים, נשמת אריאלה, simcha, nachas, and bracha. Okay. Oh yeah, and of course, to thank Rabbi Rahmani, the Shiur Mo'ol Darchei Avinoam, and his father neshama Aliyah, and the simcha nachas and bracha. Okay, so let's go back a few weeks to where we were, and I'll just tie that together a little bit for 5 minutes, and then where we're going. We were talking about the stature of man in Gan Eden and man la'achar chet, after the chet. We're talking about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. The life in Gan Eden was the Bechina of Rosh Hashanah, of Hamelach, of Hashem's presence being open and clear. That light of Hashem is the life of the tzaddik. That's what we're talking about. That's the life of the tzaddik. Outside of Gan Eden, for whatever reason, Gan Eden didn't work out. Outside of Gan Eden, we learned is the world of Tshuva, of the Beinoni. That's the world of Yom Kippur. But what we did learn in the Maimah that we were learning before we went away, what we were learning is that Yom Kippur, which is the Bechina of Kodesh Kadoshim, has a certain Maila over Gan Eden. There's other Marishan in his Rosh Hashanah perfected, so to speak, ideal state, the Tzaddik. The Tzaddik, that's the world of Gan Eden. It didn't last very long. And then what began was the Avodah of the Beinoni. The Tanya's Beinoni, that's what we're talking about. The Beinoni. Meaning a person who remarkably doesn't sin, his thoughts, his words, and his actions, but every moment of his life, the beast is crouching and waiting to pounce on him. And he has to fight off the dragon. And that whole Tanya is used on that avodah of the Beinoni. But that avodah of the Beinoni, which is, we were learning is Yom Kippur, is the Kodesh Kadoshim. And Kodesh Kadoshim was on such a madrega that even a malach couldn't go to Kodesh Kadoshim. Whereas in Gan Eden was, there were a lot of malachim, a lot of angels in Gan Eden hanging around. Gan Eden was busy with malachim. But when a person is in that life of the Beinoni, and he's fighting off the darkness that's outside of Gan Eden. So that, which is the Iker Inyan of the end of time in particular, that brings him to a place of Kodesh Kadosh, that even a Malach can't go into such a place. That's what we were talking about before. And Ramantal continues and ends that Maimer, which we're not going to read inside right now. That he explains that this, of course, is the Avodah of Yosef HaTzadik. And we call him Yosef HaTzadik, and we've spoken a lot about that name Tzadik, which means Shmir Sabris. Tzadik Yisod Olam means Shmir Sabris, Kedusha Sabris. It's the meaning of Yosef HaTzadik. But Yosef's status as Tzadik Yisod Olam was not one that he had while he was in the Gan Eden of his parents. That was Gan Eden, being with such parents in that world in Eretz Yisrael. When Yosef HaTzadik was with his parents, with Yaakov and Rachel, made that world of Yosef when he was growing up was Gan Eden. But just like Gan Eden didn't last for Adam Rishon, Gan Eden didn't last for Yosef HaTzadik, and just like Adam Rishon was forced out of Gan Eden, Yosef HaTzadik was forced out of his home. And then he went to a place that was very, very not Gan Eden. Very not Gan Eden. He went to Erev Hasaros. He went to the lowest place in the world. That's right. And Davka there, he became Yosef HaTzadik. That's not anything that he expected. He wanted to bring the light of the Tzaddik. He wanted to bring that light out when he was growing up in Eretz Yisrael in his parents' home. Yosef HaTzadik, he wanted to become Yosef HaTzadik there, but in Gan Eden, he didn't become Yosef HaTzadik. We spoke about this many times. He Davka became Yosef HaTzadik in the place of Potiphar and the prison in Mitzrayim, with all the crazy stuff. That's where Yosef became Yosef HaTzadik. And all of the Giluyim of Yosef HaTzadik with Davka Mitzrayim. Just like, as we learned many times over the years from the Zohar Kodesh, that Davka the Gilui of Yecheskel Navi, the Ma'aseh Merkava, is when we went down in chains to Bavel, not in Eretz Yisrael. Not in Eretz Yisrael. Davka when we were leaving out into Golos, Al Naharos Bavel Sham Yashab L'Gam Bachinu. That's when there was the Ma'aseh Merkava, the vision of the Merkava, of the Shechina with us in Golos. And that is the avoda of the end of time, these last few minutes of Golos, this sugya of Yosef HaTzadik, of Shmir Sabris. Now, what I wanted to spend a few weeks, we could spend a few decades, but just a couple of weeks now that we're in Kislev, and we're going to be taking out our menorahs and polishing them, Be'ez Hashem. So neres halal Kodesh Haim, ve'en lanu reshus l'hishtamesh b'hem, ela l'roisem bilvad. Ela l'roisem bilvad. The Sfar HaKadoshim, the Chaim, Skus on many tzaddikim, based upon things that we find in Kisveri and the Tikkunim in the Zohar Kodesh, that this time of the year is a very, very, very powerful time for Tikkun Ha'inayim, to work on our eyes, on Shmir Ha'inayim. The 2 times of the year is now, and then it goes right into Shavivim, after Chanukah, into the weeks of Shavivim. But the tikkunim of Einei Leia Rakos, the eyes of Leia Imenu, and you all know the 36 Leias, 36, and the 36 candles of Chanukah. And Chanukah is the Argon, is the hidden light of creation. The Sfarim talk a lot about, Rav Shitza, other tzaddikim spoke a lot about the avodah of Chanukah, is the avodah of Tikkun Ha'inayim, the 8 days of Chanukah, of course the 8 days of the Bris, and Kedushas HaBris, and the whole Indian of the Avinoam that they fought desperately against. Bris Milah, what do they have? They have something against the caterers, should make a few extra dollars or something. Or the moil should make a few dollars. What is a moil? He doesn't have anything except to go around and make a few bris in a week. And the Yevanim were fighting so strong against Bris Milah. They had such an Indian with Bris Milah. They couldn't stand Bris Milah. So all the tikkun of Chanukah have to do with the connection between the eyes and Kedushas HaBris, which is obvious. Shmir Ha'inayim and Kedushas HaBris. And that's the hidden light of Gan Eden, of creation. The Argonas, which are the 36 candles, the 36 hours that light was shining before the first Motzei Shabbos of history. And this is very, very deeply connected to Ein Yosef, to the eyes of Yosef HaTzadik. that we know that the Chaburah of Yosef HaTzadik was in his eyes. No Sadu Alei Shor. The whole Indian of Yosef HaTzadik is Kedushas Einayim, which we're going to talk about. So I wanted to spend the next few weeks, although next week I think we're having a special guest. If everything works out, Hashem, everything should work out. Rav Schwartz, who hasn't been in America for many years, the Bavavi Mishkan Evne, is going to come here to give a talk on the Indian of Kedusha. So don't miss that. It looks like it's. I think Rabbi is working on it. I think it's pretty much. I think it looks like it's going to be next Sunday morning. He's going to give 2 shiur. The early one of this shiur is going to give 2 shiur, Rav Schwartz. And they're going to be appointments for during the rest of Sunday to speak to him privately. So these weeks of Kislev and Shavavim, I wanted to spend on the Avodah of Shmiras Einayim. And in this week also, the Shvatim come into our lives, the Shiftei come. And the Bechor is Ruvain. And everybody knows that Ruvain is the Koach of Re'iyah, of seeing. Kedushas Einayim. So Kislev, Chanukah, and Ruvain, Yosef HaTzadik, everything merging together, I felt that it's a good time to begin learning the sugi of Kedushas Einayim. There's a lot mamish for years this talk about Chlal, what it means to see. I'm not going to go into a whole pnimius of it. To try to learn more Darchei Chassidus and Avodah, the Kedushas Einayim. So it was nice last week, 2 weeks ago when we were in Yerushalayim, that we had spent a little time with my dear friend Rabbi Meir. He should be well, so I decided we would learn part of a sikha that he gave 20 years ago, and that's what you have in front of you, from Sichas Ischazkas, from Tafshin Samach. For those who have never learned any of the Sichas Ischazkas from Rabbi Meir, it's written in a way like the way that he talks, and you have to try to picture that, and him jumping and moving, and that whole tour of how he gives over Torah with such life and chiyus. So let's learn a little bit. The first little bit of this mimer, he was talking about Kedushas HaDibur. Chazal make a very strong connection between Shmiras HaLashon, guarding the tongue, and guarding the bris. And both of them are connected to the things that we see and how we look at other people. Shmiras HaLashon, what we say about other people, depends upon how we look at other people. And of course, Kedushas HaBris, Losasu, Rachrei Levavchem, Rachrei Einechem. How do we look at the world? What do our eyes tell us? What do we look at? What do we see? So there's a very deep connection between Kedushas HaPeh, the mouth, and Kedushas HaMor, Kedushas HaBris. So the first couple of pages of Tzimaya was talking about Shmiras HaDibur, Shmiras HaLashon VaPeh. That's of course something that's very, very important. We're not going to work on that right now. We're going to talk about it right now. We're going to go beginning where it says Dalet. So you have on page Vav, Dalet. It's a nice way of referring to it. Not Shmiras Einayim, guarding the eyes, which of course is what it is, but Taharas Einayim. Not just for Tahar Libeinu, but to purify our eyes. How to have eyes that are pure. To work on purifying our eyes. Because the truth is, Nikius, cleaning the eyes, purifying the eyes, is the beginning of the work, of the practical work of Shmiras HaBris. That's what a person looks at. Nikius Einayim, that's where it begins. And this is one of the great Yesaitis of Avodas Hashem. Chazal, Akadoshim, Tzadikim, Susim, Elenu, Hefligu, Ma'od, B'inyan Zeh. Chazal and the Tzadikim speak very strongly about this. Moshe שלמה HaMelech Omer, Shlomo says in Mishlei, Tna b'ni libcha li, Ve'enecha Darchei titzarna. Again, the pasuk. Tna b'ni libcha li. Hashem, through Shlomo Melech, Hashem is saying to each one of us. It's a very beautiful pasuk. Tna b'ni libcha li. Hashem says, I'm asking you to give me your heart. Tna b'ni libcha li. Give me your heart. Ve'enecha Darchei titzarna. And let the literal translation is, and let your eyes watch and guard my ways. And let your eyes watch my ways. Give me your heart, and let your eyes watch my ways. That's how it's translated, the simple English. V'chemavur b'chazal HaKadoshim shapasuk hu ben kipshuto Avinu shebeshamayim eschanan eleinu. Hashem is begging us. Shlomo Melech Omer lonu b'shlichus Avinu shebeshamayim. Shlomo Melech is saying this to us as b'shlichus. Hashem sent Shlomo Melech to tell this to us. Tana b'ni. Tana b'ni. In other words, b'ni hayaka, my dear son. Tana b'ni. Hashem uses this word of endearment over here. He doesn't always use the word b'ni, my child. It's not b'ni libcha li. Ani mevakesh es halev. Ani mevakesh es halev. It's funny. I once saw the translation in English that says, "Give me your mind." Since when is "leiv" translated as mind? It's interesting. Because the one who translated it was some academician who couldn't bear the thought of Hashem asking him for his heart. So he wrote, "Give me your mind." Listen, and we'll finish. There's some Mepharshim that say that also. It shouldn't be so hard on him. But the pasuk says, "Tana b'nei lichali." Give me your heart. Ani mevakesh es halev. I mean, Chazal say, "Rachmana liba boy." It's not a new thing. Tana b'nei libchali. Ani mevakesh es halev. Ve'enecha Darchei titzarna. K'mvu b'chazal HaKadoshim. Umuva b'charedim. The charedim says, "Sha'posik misparish gamkin ba'ofen acher." The simple pshat is the way that I said before. Give me your heart, and let your eyes watch my ways. But Chazal and the Svarim explain it also. Shetevas ve'enecha koy alamayla. That it's going on the first part on the Reisha. It's going on the first part of the pasuk. In other words, Tna b'ni libcha li ve'enecha. Give me your. Hashem's asking each one of us for two things. I want your, and the two are inseparable. I want your heart, and I want your eyes. Tana b'ni libcha li einecha, which means that by giving me your eyes, you're devoting your heart to me as well. I want these two, your heart and your eyes. Avinu shebeshamayim mevakesh mi'itanu. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking from each one of us, b'ni hayaka, my dear son. Colossian Chazal HaKadoshim Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yehavesli libcha ve'eincha. The Chazal said, Hashem is saying to each one of us, give me your heart and give me your eyes. Listen, Hashem wants us to walk to the right places. Hashem wants us to do the right things with our hands, with our tongue. Hashem has a lot of expectations and demands of us. But the two things that he says, that he's crying to us, that we should give him, are the heart and the eyes. That's not possible. That's what Hashem's calling out to us in that pasuk that we say every day a couple of times in Kriya Shema. In other words, don't give your heart and your eyes to someone else. That's what we say in Kriya Shema. Don't give your heart and your eyes away. So here in Mishlei, Hashem is saying, give me your eyes and your heart and your eyes. Ana yeda atli, ani yedeh sh'ata sheli. Because if you give me these two things, if you're able to be mechazik yourself, and to give me your heart and your eyes, ana yeda atli, then I know that you're mine. It's the same thing with a wife, by the way. If you give me these two things, some also like to have a parnos. But if you give me these two things, your heart and your eyes, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that I know that you're mine. That I know that you're mine. I know that we're together. The heart and the eyes. Ani yodeh she'ata sheli. You know, one of the ways that Jews talk, and it's very, very sweet, I don't know if this is necessarily a way that's spoken in other languages, but in Mamaloshen, there's even a story like this, that once the Balatanya, Schus Yelenu, the Balatanya heard his wife talking to somebody, his Rebbetzin, and the way she was saying it was, Meine Zalman, my Zalman. You know, my Jews talk in such a way, when you speak about a child, you say, my Meira, my Suri, my Rachel, whatever your child, you say, you talk in such a way. It's woven into our language. Again, I don't know if other languages have that, to say a child with a possessive mine. So Hashem has such a thing. Hashem says, you're mine. These are the two conditions, these are the two requirements, Hashem says. Give me your heart and give me your eyes, and then you're mine. Then I know that you're mine. Ani yodeh she'ata sheli. Hashem is on mevakesh mitana lev einai. Ze ma she'avinu shebashamayim mevakesh mitana. The Balatanya spoke about that because he heard his wife saying that to somebody, my Zalman. And the Balatanya said that one has to think of HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying that about each and every one of us. He said, my wife says that about me. The Nachas Kama V'Kama, that the Shechina Kodesh says that about me. My wife says that about me, that I belong to her, that I'm hers. Nachas Kama V'Kama, that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at me in such a way to say, my Zalman. I arrive at Schus and Kosev, and the Rabbi writes, Umuva b'harbe svarim. Ve'eshes chacham mi'od harbe tzadikim. Hayonu yodim shekol dirveim shel rishonim. So we're talking about the Ravid. The Ravid is a Rishon. Heim Kodesh Kadosh. Every word that came out from the Rishonim, of course, is Kodesh Kadosh. Heim nitn l'Moshe misinei mamish. That they came from Moshe Rabbeinu misinei mamish. We can't be masig, we can't comprehend the greatness of and the pureness of the Rishonim. The Divrei Boirim Kilapidim, and their words are burning like torches. Kolosh Nachavetz Chaim Schus Elenu, Kach Omer arrive at Kodesh. So the Ravid says, the Ravid says the beginning of all Gedarim, which means that the first and most basic fence that a Jew has to build in his life, a fence, a geder, sheyishmar odem einav, is to guard one's eyes. The Ravid explains that if you can do that, you build a strong fence, and you work on guarding your eyes. Then the heart will be good. The heart will be okay. Then your heart will be guarded. If your eyes are open for business, then the heart is also open. Chalila. The heart could be led astray very easily. So the Ravid says that when a person's heart and eyes are shmurim, then he's kuloi shama. Then his feet are not going to go to the wrong place. Right? So we were saying before that there are many parts to a person, not just the eyes and the heart. So the Ravid is explaining that Hashem is telling us, T'na b'ni libchali, it sort of means that if you give me your eyes, if you give me your heart and your eyes, then I'm certain that your feet will not take you to bad places. And then your hands will not do bad things. And your mouth will say the right things. That's what the Rabbi is explaining. That if the toch liba ve'enav shmurim nimsa kuloi sham, then the fence, the wall, is strong. Kuloi sham. So a person can make all kinds of kabbalas. I'm not going to go to that place this year. I went to a bad place this year. I'm not going to go back to that place. It's a bad place. Or I'm not going to go to that place on the computer. It's a bad place. I'm not going to walk there with my feet or walk there with my fingers on the computer. I'm not going to walk there. And there's no guarantee that he's not going to walk there. And he can say 1,000 times, I'm not walking to that place, not with my feet and not with my fingers. I'm not walking there. And he still finds that he still finds himself going to those places. Because that's not a shmir yet. The fact that a person says on Yom Kippur, I'm not going back to that place. Either with the feet or with the phone, with the finger. I'm not going back to that place. Gamart. But Hashem says, unless you're prepared to give me your heart and your eyes, it's a lo batuach. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. So you can make all the finest kabbalas and you make all kinds of shmiras for yourself that you're not going to go there. You got this filter, you got that filter, whatever it might be. But the posuk is saying that Kodesh Baruch Hu is telling us that that if you give me your heart and your eyes, then you're mine. Then I know you're mine. Then you're not going to drag around the wrong places. That's what the Rabbi explains the pasuk. That's what our Father is asking of us. That's a lot to ask. It's hard. That's what he's asking. Halev v'heinayim. Hascholihi heinayim. As Chazal and Rashi brings there in the pasuk in Chumash, that it begins with the eyes. The heart is a part of us that we don't always have control over. Things just pop up in the heart. All kinds of crazy things come to the heart because of stuff from way back. All kinds of things can come to the heart, and a person can't. It's not always b'reshusah. I mean, again, the midah of a tzaddik is that libos b'reshusah, but the heart we can't always control. Emotions, desires, we can't always control. But a person's always a balabas over his eyes, and if you don't feel that way, it's just because you're not working at it. It's not like the heart. The heart, even if you the only thing you saw that entire day was you looking inside a siddur and a gemara or whatever, you didn't see anything bad the whole day. The heart is only when a person's mamash and madrega tzaddik, the heart is libi chol b'kirbi, but the eyes of a person is a balabas over his eyes. You don't have to look at something you don't want to look at. Sometimes you have no choice, and there's a feeling that creeps in. But the eyes of a person is a balabas over his eyes. What you look at, it's your choice what to look at, or not to look at. It's true that sometimes all of a sudden, but we're not talking about those few times. It happens, there's something coming in. But a person's stam is a balabas over his eyes. What to look at, what not to look at. Therefore, the eyes is the first gather. That's the beginning. That's the Rosh L'chol HaGedar. Hageder harishon hu be'inyan ha'inayim. That's the first gather. Is the inyan of the einayim. Those windows that we have on our heads. What you look at from the window, what you want to look at, that's a person's a balabas over that. Again, sometimes, but a person's a balabas over what he looks at. Remember I told you once that, I remember once, years ago they used to have this TV guide, you remember? I don't know, you have to already be older to remember that. See, how do you plan out your week with that? So you have to plan out your week, because you couldn't record anything, right, in those days, so you had to know what's going to be, if there's anything, what are you going to do if it's the two things, and how to choose between what's on channel 4 or 7 or whatever, or some old rerun on 11, right? So you had to plan out your week. So they had this thing that came out every week. It was in every single supermarket. It was in everybody had TV guide. It was everywhere TV guide. And I told this to you last year. At the beginning, there were letters about people. This show, that show, different hours, different ideas about the shows, all kinds of things that they had letters. And especially the big one that was in September, that was the exciting, was then it always announced the new shows that were coming out for the season. Right? Right. So that was the big one, and there was a letter that a person wrote. It was crazy strong about how I hate this show. The show is terrible. The show is horrible. I can't stand watching this show. Like such a strong letter. And the people from TV Guide wrote back very good. And they said, we're gonna, if you please send us your address, we'll send over the police to untie you from the chair at 8:00 on Tuesday night, with somebody standing there holding your eyes open to watch the show that you can't stand. In other words, if you don't like it, then change the channel, you idiot. No, but the way the person wrote, I can't. Like every week, I'm subjected to this nonsense. That's the way he wrote. Every week, I'm subjected to this nonsense. So they wrote back. So. Don't watch it. Turn the channel. But it's a funny story, but we're the same way. This is messing up my life. This is messing up my life. It's terrible. This is messing up my life. So don't watch it. No? It's not so pashut. Obviously, the person with the letter has some sort of a crazy type to watch that show. And he keeps on turning it on, and then it's like, but I hate this part, but if you fix it, then I'll be able to like it. But it's the same thing with us. There are things that we shouldn't see, and we're upset. It's messing up our lives. And the Baruch Shalom is saying, "So don't watch it. Change the channel." Because that's what the Rabbi is saying. You have a choice. You have a choice of channels. You don't have to be on that channel. You can turn the channel. And that's the first gather. Haggadah Rishon will be inyan hayinayim. It's the first gather. Zah scholar shel Avodas HaTahara. The aleph of Avodas HaTahara. A lot of people think that's the last, that's the final, that's the madrega of only like the Chavetz Chaim, or who knows. Taharas Einayim is the highest, the last madrega. It's the first madrega. The beginning of Avodas HaTahara. For a Jew who wants to live a pure life, the beginning is Tikkun Einayim. The beginning is Tikkun Einayim. Jeff?
Does he discuss why it's Levavchem first in the pasuk?
Yeah, well, Rashi says over there that the tachlis is that the heart that nothing should infiltrate into our feelings, our emotions. So it begins with Levavchem, but Rashi says, but the traces, but the two brokers that cause the two causes of Avera are the eyes. So it begins there. It's going from the tachlis, and then the hechetim how to fix it should be good. That's how it goes in that order. Sometimes it says this first, sometimes that first. But the gather, in other words, it's written Losasu achrei levavchem, and if you want to know how your heart will not get fablonged, achrei neichem, then watch what you look at. That's how you learn it.
Where does the ears come in? Like what's the Shema versus where does the ears come in?
Very good question. It's interesting. Of course, there is an Indian of Shmiras HaOznayim, but you never see that Lashon. It's always in the context of Shmiras HaLashon. As the Lashon, the speech and hearing, all of the Kedushas HaPeh doesn't only mean the words that I say, but it means the words that I listen to or what I'm hearing. But they're all connected. They're all connected. But you're right. says, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael.
But the ears can't be closed.
Hmm?
You have to, the eyes can be closed, but the ears can't be closed without.
So over the years we've spoken a lot about that because that's the avodah of Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is Riyah and Shimon is Shmiya. Those are the two avodas of Reuven and Shimon, which in the calendar of the year is Tammuz and Av. According to that Seder, it's Tammuz and Av, and that's why by the Beis Hamikdash any other Ma'im so it has to do with all the with the eyes and the ears, but the Kedusha's Shmiya. There was the Seder's like this that a person has to. It begins with guarding the eyes, because that's really what's in front of you. You see that which is in your range of vision. Hearing is even for something that you can't see; it's even from a distance. So there is a lot of talk about which is the most powerful of the senses. Is it seeing or is it hearing? Seeing is something which takes over a person. When you see something with your eyes, it takes over. It takes much stronger than shmiya, than hearing something which is more removed. So the avodah of tikkun ha'inayim is harder and it's more immediate than the ears. But the ears is also part of the avodah, but more of the shmiya halosh. We're going to talk about that also. That's part of the conversation. Obviously, a person could be listening to terrible things on a radio, or whatever, a podcast. Doesn't have to see anything. Just listening to things is itself a terrible, could be a terrible type. But the first gather of one's experiences is what of experiencing the world is with seeing. And he says, "V'av she'yadu she'taharas hapeh, u'gam kein minyan ha'rishon b'tahara, k'ma she'dibanu b'zeh Hashem barichas kamapam, gam b'shavua ha'ova." Last week we spoke about it. Shal shudas. V'kom yadu, the next page Zayin. V'kom yadu she'shnei inyanim Elohim trei rein lo misparshin. These two things are really inseparable. Guarding the mouth, the tongue, and guarding the eyes and the ears as part of that. These are really all. It's one avodah. Bris haloshen, bris einayim. Therefore, we find also that lashon being used when it comes to the tongue, bris halashon, and bris heinayim. V'gam b'zar Kodesh b'parshas Vayakel hefligu ma'od b'zeh she'einayim molichos es kol haramach v'ashasa. And the Zohar Kodesh talks about this in Vayakel, that the eyes have the greatest, most powerful ability to draw the entire person. Not the hearing doesn't have the ability as much to draw the person, to take the person in. That's why graphics and visual experiences are the most powerful that a person can have. Is seeing something. He's seeing something. Seeing is the most powerful, and the eyes, and that's why Reuven is the Bechor. Reuven is the Bechor. Reuven is Riyah, and that's the Bechor. And Reuven. It's all in Yosef HaTzadik to go over. Then the Bechor from Reuven has to do with the Tikkun Ha'inayim is Yosef HaTzadik, because Reuven had a kilkul, and therefore Yosef HaTzadik is the Tikkun Ha'inayim. So therefore Yosef takes over the Bechor, so to speak. But Be'etzim, Reuven is the Bechor, and Reuven means to see. That's the Bechor, and everything follows that ratios, right? When it goes after the ratios, so the eyes are the most powerful. Experience, l'toiv or l'ra. And we see therefore we see in Gan Eden, we see all of these things. We see that they looked at the tree, and it was nechmet la'inayim, and they listened to the snake. But the most powerful thing is to see, and seeing is what draws the person more than anything. I suspect that there's a much bigger business in things where a person looks at Tumah as opposed to hearing Tumah. It's a much bigger business. They're both big businesses. I don't know, whatever. They have shows to listen to or things to listen to, the Diburim of Tumah. But you can't compare that. When things moved from radio to television, I don't know what year that was, it was a bad year. I mean, when it moved from radio to television.
1949.
You remember that?
Well, I don't exactly remember, but
That was the time that television started, 1949?
And actually, Mr. Sarnoff had already created email.
Email?
Email. And it was closed down by the government. They were afraid that Russia would get it. He predicted that your letter writing would be done through email because he had invented the television.
But there was no computers, so email meaning on television?
Through the same mode, he had created a rudimentary.
So he was a Jew.
Yeah, everything that's.
A lot of the stuff happened. Not everything, mostly. So look, there are a lot of good things from that, but from radio to television. When we were growing up, we used to carry around transistor radios and listen to the ball games. It's a transistor. It was a whole mahalach how to do that and have a little earplug while having the thing in your pants in the middle of the Shiur. And to have a wire, because then we start to dress more formally. We start to wear jackets. I remember the Rabbi said, Aish. He was so happy because the guy started to wear. As it got closer to the World Series, we started to wear jackets. He was always angry that we wore shirts. We didn't wear jackets. So we started to wear jackets because then we had a mahalach with the earplug. We got the little earplug, and then this, yes. We had transistor radios, and it wasn't so push to find your station. You had to drag around a little bit.
Had the antenna.
Yeah, the antenna. If it moved a little bit, it was finished. You had to be. Yeah. Then when it moved to television, that was a big tumor that came to the world, that descended upon the world, and it moved to the eyes, from the ears to the eyes. It was a big tumor that descended upon the world. And then afterwards, when it came all the new stuff over the past few years, it's taken it to a completely different level. But we understand, Hakol nimshach achar einai. Everything is nimshach achar einai. V'kach gamuva b'chazal. B'kama makom. And this is what's brought in Chazal, b'kama makom, is that the first gather, even though it sounds to us like it's the hardest. Like, why start with the hardest? Usually, the way we do everything else, you just start with the easiest. And it would seem to us that the eyes, Taharas Einayim, that's like I'm talking about, the Baba Sali or something. Why begin with Taharas Einayim? Why is that the first gather? Hashem Misbach made us in such a way that those are the windows. So anything that comes from the outside is the first place. That's where it comes in, through the window. So the beginning of the Tahara is Einayim, even though we think of that as being the highest and hardest madrega, it's not really true. It's not true. It's not the hardest madrega. But we're not used to guarding our eyes. We're not used to watching our eyes. Okay, so Bez Hashem, I hope next week we'll have the Levavi here, don't miss that, and we'll continue Mr. Hashem the following week. Correct. There's still the Nefesh Bahamas is still there. It's just he doesn't allow it to get in. It's still there.
I know, but
Yeah.